I'm Jaron Matheson, the host of the Up-Stream podcast, and today's guest is very near and dear to my heart. I've gotten to know her over the last 10 months, and I've been set free in a few areas of my life, and those areas we're going to talk about today. She holds the key of freedom and a couple other things, and I'm already choking up. She has shown me a side of love that I've never seen before from like a sister standpoint. And it's amazing. And she is a worshiper. She just loves the Lord and she just likes to sling freedom all over the place. And she's actually her and her husband own this place that we host the Upstream podcast in, and it is Jordan Ochoa.
Hi. Thanks for having me on Upstream.
Yeah. So first thing I always ask is when you hear the word upstream, what does that word mean to you?
I'm going to ask the Lord if He gives me a word for it.
It's okay.
um, so I'm hearing like direct line. So from like the living waters, when I think upstream, I'm thinking, river, stream, waters, overflow. And I just feel like when it's upstream, it's like a direct line. Like you're going up and like, that's what I saw. A direct line to the throne of heaven. And so it could have multiple meanings. I'm not sure why you actually called it upstream. But I believe that's probably something you possibly carry is that direct line and from the living waters to overflow out. So
That's good. Yeah, everybody I ask has completely different answers. And it's really interesting because you hear a word and you think it has just like a meaning or two. You're the 17th person I've had on now, and every single one is completely different.
That's cool.
And
multiple different meanings.
no, I like that. Like the direct line. That's good. Where I get it to go for this name is to go like against the current, against the, you have to fight to go back to the source of who we were created to be. And it's not an easy path to go upstream. So like salmon, they go upstream to go do their offspring and have the eggs, and they go back out in the ocean and they have to come fight all the way back upstream to where they were born. So like who were we created and who created us? So like that's kind of where I got that from. And Ashley's the one who actually came up with the name Upstream. So today's topic that I want to dive into is worship. And it's really interesting because I used to be the guy that would sit in the pew and like not even move. Didn't raise my hand. Just I was like, I'll stand when I'm told to stand and I'll sit when I told to sit. And this year I'm like getting free of like that whole fear of man, this like what is worship? And it's interesting because I got so worried about the person in front of me, behind me, to the left of me, and the right of me. I like could not even focus on worshiping during worship where we go at Storehouse the whole time. Like never. I'm always just like, like, and I don't mean to, but I just do it. And now I'm like, I really felt the Lord's like, it's time for you to go up front. See, there's no distractions because all I see is the worship team. And I can just focus. And it's interesting. And I'd love to hear your thoughts because I know a little bit of where you've kind of started and where you are now. And because for me, when I'm up there, I don't I don't see anybody anymore. I can just focus on him. Where I've said this to a few people, they're like, "Yeah, but everyone's looking at you." I'm like, "I don't care. Like, if they're looking at me, then they're not focused on like I'm here to worship and I don't want to be distracted." And so I'm like, I'm got to go up front. And I'm not there all the time because I do feel like sometimes I'm called to be in the back, but it's very rare. But every now and then I feel like I got to get up and move. And so from meeting you and seeing the freedom that you have to worship, and you were over at my house one night with a group of us, and just the Lord convicted me, Jordan, like hit me in the heart after we did like a little worship session. I was like, oh my gosh, it's time for us men to join these women that are dancing and get up front. Now I haven't unleashed my dancing skills yet. I'm working on it. But I've gotten a lot of freedom. Just like, I'm going to go up and I'm just going to put my hands up and just soak when it's worship time. And so meeting you and getting that, we, we talked about the keys that one, and getting that key of freedom to unlock me to start to worship how God created me to worship is so freeing. And it's such an impact in my life that you've done for me. So I would just love for you to just tell us a little bit of how you kind of like started this whole journey of your freedom, of like how you express your worship, of that.
Oh man. Okay. So yeah, what you have witnessed with me has not always been. It wasn't always that way. Um I got saved in 2011, and I mean, I'm by nature incredibly passionate person, expressive. I Whatever I am in love with, I express with all of me. So it's my nature to express what I'm passionate about, and obviously I'm passionate about the Lord. Um, but for all these years, literally up to 2 years ago, I knew that I was a mover and a shaker, right? There's like the movers and shakers, like, and I literally think that's actually physical, like movement. There's like movers and shakers, like the wild ones, right? Um, but I would be in worship and like just kind of like I knew I was always supposed to move in some way, but because of fear of man, I dance, moving in the form of dancing as my form of expressing my heart for Him. Um, I I would sabotage myself by literally dressing up and conforming to the way the rest of the church worship, just in a chair sitting, and maybe a very few come up to the altar, but like because no one else did, that's just the way I was like conformed to that. And you'll see actually in Romans 12 like where the true heart of worship is, and it talks about like to not conform and to renew your mind, to not conform to what the rest of what they're doing, and to renew your mind, and how that's literally connected to proper worship. And but for me, I was in bondage, and I wasn't pleasing the Lord because I wasn't giving my all. I wasn't actually worshiping Him. And it got to a point 2 years ago where He was like, this isn't like you. I made you to worship me. I made you, like, you are called to like express and show who I am and love me. And I was not obeying Him. I was scared. I was driven by man and the fear of man. And I had a wrong confidence. I always talk about this, that people say, oh, I'm not confident enough to do that. And I was like, and He's like, but you're not supposed to have confidence in like yourself. You should love yourself because of God. But like confidence is a trust in who you entrust in. And it's like, if you trust Him, if you're confident in the Lord, then you don't really fear man. So I got that revelation when I got free from this. But 2 years ago, it was Zion Dance Project. They're a huge dance worship ministry. They had a winter series, and the founder was at our house, and he basically said, you need to do this. And that's in that week they get you free. And it was 16 years I had quit dance because I was stuck in this performance mindset. I was like idolizing dance and like thinking that, oh, well, I'm no longer a dancer, right? And And if God wants me to use my worship and express him through dance, I had to get rid of that performance mindset, right? It was the performance mindset that was literally tying me down because I thought, oh, well, no. I dance. So much to say about this, but I dance on like I don't dance for like I don't dance in that way anymore. Meaning like that dance was just that. It wasn't for that. Which is the biggest lie. And I have so much more to say about different art forms and how it's literally all for the Lord. And Vincent looked at me and I said, listen, I'm not a dancer anymore. And David's there with me. And because it's this 1 week series thing that I needed to do and to get freedom and to start moving, learning how to move for God. And he's like, yeah, you're not a dancer, you're a daughter. Ooh. I'm like, can't argue that. And daughters and sons, you're obedient, right? Doesn't really matter what the heck you're doing. So I was like, and David supported, and he's like, I'll watch the kids, like you go and you do this. And within the first day of that week, every night they would have all the dancers come and they worship, right? Freely, however you want. And I got hit. And at that point, like, just going back to that memory, but like, I let everything go, fully undignified. And I lost all control of like my body, but I became that living sacrifice. I said, all of me. And then he said to me, on like things that I had major bondage of, he was like, now you're free. And I became the lover more than ever because I realized, like, at that moment, I'm like, wow. I was like, why are people holding back? And, I was there. I get it. I was there. For 16, I mean, literally just in full bondage. And I went from 0 to 100. I literally came back to church. I would literally dress up, and then I came back, like, in the new year in sweats. And everyone's like, and at the front, I'm like, going crazy. But I couldn't wait because I knew how I was made to be free. And then, but I understood. I'm like, why? Like, if you fully grasp who he is, and I have like literally like there's so much scripture to really back this up, but if the presence of the Lord is in front of you, in Psalm I think 91 or one of the Psalms, that worship in splendor. And so expression, like the natural reaction to like the heart posture, like you're like, it's the living sacrifice, the fully giving your all, your full body. And from that place, if you're there, if you're like fully giving him all of you, I have zero control because I love you and I'm in awe of you and the presence. The natural reaction should be some form of expression. To you coming up, it doesn't mean you have to dance. Not everyone, there's all these different expressions that we can express ourselves to the Lord, but like sitting in a chair and internalizing is fine if that's where the Lord wants you. But I just believe the natural reaction, and obviously we know David's the best example, but the natural reaction of the heart of worship when you're actually there as a living sacrifice, giving your entire body, I feel like has some form of like there has to be some reaction to that and an expression of who he is. So yeah, I always want to see like people, if you're a painter, writer, like there is something of the Lord that he wants of you that pleases him. Everything we do is worship. Okay. Your heart posture, like we are supposed to be in constant worship of the Father, which means that it's the heart posture partnered with the expression of what you're doing that brings down the glory of the Lord too. And your business, art, painting, singing, dancing, writing, cooking, it's all an expression that comes out of your heart of worship. And if you're not partnering like who he is and all that you're doing, I mean, like, I don't, we should be in constant worship. And that's how you can glorify him. And he's the creator of all things. He's the creative. And I just believe like the Lord is desiring to see the body set free from this conformed mindset of this is the way like we are to worship, but the reason is because of like why McCall was embarrassed from David. And the only reason why she was like embarrassed and thought he was foolish was because she was bound to religion and she didn't know who she was. But David did. The king dancing wildly before the throne, before the ark, knowing the presence is right there. That's what he's doing. He's like this, and he was like grateful that the ark was back in the city. And he was undignified because I mean that's that like he didn't care. He didn't care what she thought, and that's the spirit. Is the spirit of McCall that is like countering is what's putting that fear of man or the fear of people being able to express, right? And I believe a lot of people look at dancers, singers, this and that, and they have this like comparing mindset of like, no, I can't do that, or I'm not gifted in that, or this and that. And it's like, where's your heart? Are you encountering him? Do you know who you're worshiping? I don't know. When I know who my God is, like when I know like the splendor, the majesty, the glory of who he is, like the beauty of the Lord, literally, if people literally saw the Lord standing in front of him, there's no way. Oh gosh, this drives me nuts. But there's no way you'd just be like this. No.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way you would just be sitting to a chair with your eye, like when the Almighty, like there's no way. Actually, I asked the Lord what would happen if I saw you, and he said you wouldn't be able to move, but you would be like, but there's a heart, there's like an awe, like whatever that is. I just the stagnant of people, I don't know if is always, I can't say that for everything, but it's the heart. And again, that's the Lord's place to judge that. But I know that there's place that the Lord desires to see his people express his splendor and the beauty of who he is, and that's through creative, like through different forms of creation.
I got something on that. So I don't remember when this was, but it was probably 4 or 5 months ago. Tracy made a comment about worshiping, like, let's get some more people up here. She's like, I've seen y'all dance at weddings, secular songs. Why are y'all not dancing up here when it's time to worship? And I was like, you're right. Like we get our favorite tune on and we're jamming in the car. We're doing this. We're singing the lyrics, and I've seen people that don't move, but when their song comes on, they click like this, right? Because they're like, oh, that's my song or that's my jam, and it's bringing me back to this. And you kept using this word expression. And I'm sitting here like, you're right. Like it's time to, like, if you were at, celebrating somebody, you're not just be like, happy birthday. It's so great to see you. I love you. So you'd be like, yes, I'm so excited for this year for you. And you're like, you just get pumped. Right. And like, and I miss that on worship my whole life because I was afraid of man. And this is just interesting. You're like, really? Like I like thought about it. I'm like, really, I'm really scared of what someone thinks of me that's in this room versus the Almighty. And I go, and it hit me. I'm like, oh, this is what the fear of the Lord is.
Yeah.
And I go, I didn't get it. So like, as I'm being free to worship, Jordan, I'm learning what the fear of the Lord is. I was like, I hear it all the time, but I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
that's what that is. That's what letting go is. That's what the fear of the Lord is, and letting go of this fear of man. And when Tracy said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. I was like, if my favorite song comes on in the car, I'm just jamming like crazy. And
Mhm.
if I'm going to one of my favorite concerts, I'm up front.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but really, is that my favorite?
Mhm.
Like, oh my goodness.
I actually didn't know she said that. I may have missed that, but that I'm glad to hear that because I say that all the time. Actually, it's a perfect example that I use. It's like I don't understand how people can go to clubs or weddings and they will dance their heart out undignified. Like non-dancers will freaking move in a wedding, but they don't want to dance for the Lord because of what we've been taught and the way that that's not it doesn't make sense. I'm like, I don't get it. Why are they willing to go even painting or whatever? It's like, why are you willing to do that like there in the world and not here? Like, I'm like, what? That's not for them. It's for the Lord. Your body, your moving body is not for that, for the world. It's for the Lord. As I mean, so
Yeah, it's to go on that. This is really interesting because we've all done it, but like I can think of an instance where like I'll go dance my socks off and like jump all around because, like I said earlier, I'm not like I have no embarrassment to dance the song, but for some reason, when we're worshiping, I'd be like, well, I'm going to be embarrassed. Why would where is that coming from? Where has that come from? Like when I was a kid, is it like, I don't know, but like, I'm like, I thought of this probably like 2 or 3 months ago. I'm like, why was I embarrassed to dance before the Lord in front of people, but I had no embarrassment to go dance at a wedding? And I'm silly, Jordan. When I'm all over the place. I'll fall down. I'll do this. And I have no problem. But like, I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. This makes no sense when you actually think about it at all. It makes no sense. And it's, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And this might not be correlated at all, but like most people, I feel like they don't mind looking a fool and being silly in front of people they don't know. But if they know them, they get comfortable and they don't want to look like a fool. Not everyone's like that, but I've seen a lot of people like that. So I'm like, is there familiarity in a church setting? Or if they went to another church, would they be more scared? And I think it depends on the person. Cause like if I went to a church that I didn't know anybody, I'm like trying to think right now, like an honest question, like answer. I, I probably feel more comfortable at Storehouse with people I know to do that than not. But
yeah.
I know there's some people who are like, hey, they don't know me. They'll never see me again. It doesn't matter. But for me, I feel like I get more expressive when there's people that I know that love me, and it gets me out. But I was like embarrassed, and I'm like, that's a silly word to use, but I was.
It's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh no, I well to your point, no, I'd rather be in celebration with like around and dancing and being expressive with the people that I love most, that I know. I've been sent to places where the Lord's like, go and dance. It's actually, I'm like, okay. But I have to get to that mindset. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like, I don't, and I don't really care what people think about me. Sometimes I'm like, I battle, like, okay, like, I don't know, but he'll send me to places and I have to maybe push a little bit
Yeah.
more to be like, I, I have to come
Yeah.
boldly and release what you ever want me to release, bring freedom, whatever. I literally had to do that in a place in Colorado. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you want me to scream in this church? And I did. He's like, I want you to yell out right now in a place that's normally they don't do that, I guess.
Good.
And actually there was some break, like some freedom that actually released, something shifted. But it's just obedience. It's obedience and the fear of God, like you said. Um And what was the other thing you were saying? You said another thing. I wanted to make another point. Yes, about that, and then
I was talking about the fear of the Lord, of how silly it was that
the embarrassment
part of, I thought, why am I not embarrassed to go dance at a wedding and look like a fool, but I have embarrassment to go look like a fool during worship?
Yeah. I mean, I think the simple thing to the bondage of that, I mean, it's fear of man, but it's the spirit of religion.
Mm.
It really is, to call it out. I mean, if the church can just break from that mindset, right? That conformed, when everyone's like conformed to like one way, that's the spirit of religion. This is the way we're supposed to be. This is the way we're supposed to do it. This is how we were taught. This is what looks right, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the spirit of religion, and so they need to get rid of that. I mean, it's still a big thing in the church.
Yeah, and it's tough. I think I shared this with you that night, or maybe it was the week after, but like when I saw you girls worshiping, and us guys were worshiping in my living room, and we were all, even us guys were a little more free than we were at church, and I was like, this feels so good. And I remembered this clip that I saw of this guy. He just goes out in the middle of, I think it's New York City's park, and he just starts flailing his arms and he's just dancing, and everyone's looking at him like he's just some idiot. And it just goes on for like another 30, 40 seconds, and everyone's like, what in the world? And then all of a sudden, another brave guy, he comes on up and he starts dancing next to him. And then the snowball effect happens, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. Yeah. And it hit me that night where I was like, we need more people to step up and join, because you have, when you go up, and we talked about this, like it wasn't just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna do my thing. You want people to come up with you. And like, I never thought of that until you said it. I was like, why? Like, because it's corporate worship. We're doing it as a family, and there's something powerful about that. And I was like completely oblivious when you said that. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, we need more people to jump on that train. And the more that do it, the more people come. And I remember seeing that night, I was like, all right, guys, we're going up. Like, we got to just take that step. And I remember seeing that, like, the second and the third and the fourth people, they're the ones that got the crowd to be moved. Because you're always got those bold people that will go do it, but they need a couple other people that can help move it. Because if it's just one person, but you get 20 people, and then you get 30, and then eventually what happens is the people out in the pews are the ones that are actually like, oh my gosh, I'm in the minority now. I'm the one that's not. And you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to see happen, is like, I want the uncomfortability being back, right? How do we get that to happen? Because once you get that shift movement happening, it's amazing. And I can't remember who I was talking about this with, but I was like, prayer is really powerful, and there's different aspects to it. And so is worship. And so one day I was talking to one of my friends about prayer. I was like, I think he asked me, he's like, how powerful do you believe prayer is if you just prayed for something by yourself? And I was like, I had to think about it. I was like, I don't know, maybe it depends on the mood I'm in, how much I believe. Like, I was coming, he's like, no. He's like, dude, like, if you're all in and you just pray, do you believe God can do something? I'm like, yeah. He's like, cool. Now imagine 10 million people praying for the same thing at the same time. He goes, I'm getting the chills. Look at this. Just like, you just move. That's how you like literally go. And I was like, so when you were talking, I was like, I saw that analogy from a prayer standpoint in worship, where we worship together. Imagine all of us going and worshiping in our own form. We're not comparing, because we all worship differently, but we're not robots. We're like, how did God create us? And like you said, it's not about dancing necessarily or moving. Someone could be painting during worship, right? Someone could literally be there. It's time for them to, I don't know, anything. And yeah, just receive, right? And give your heart up.
Right. Whatever.
And so I thought of that one night. I was like, imagine 100 of us are just pouring out worship how we were created to do it. What would change? And I was like, something would change. Something would change. And I think
Chains would be broken.
yeah, I'm like, that's where the church, I feel like we need to go as a community, as a full church. Like, it's time that we go all in.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a battle I have with chairs. You know, and I'm not saying that's maybe even like the full answer, you know, but you know, I think that if, you know, churches didn't structure the way that invited you into a chair, but invited you into like expression and worship, and there, you know, I think that you know, maybe I shouldn't even go into that topic, but I have a view about like, can we just get rid of the chairs, open it up, allow the environment to just be inviting? And I think that's what happens. It's like, I know there's a million people sitting who want to express, but churches have to give that invitation. You can say, hey, you can do this and this and this, but you have to like open up the space to give people the opportunity to express. And I believe the Lord is desiring a new thing. It's the new wineskin that He's been saying, that the old one is done. In the church, like, that's done. Stop pouring into the old ways. It's not gonna work. And the new wineskin looks really different. I believe I'm called in the time of the rise of just um yeah, it's what I mean. The Lord's been speaking this to a lot of people, but there's like the rise of the wild ones, and like it looks different. It doesn't look like what church used to be, but what I believe He's calling the church to look like is the way it was from the very beginning. So I think we've changed it so much so it actually is biblically. um and I think there was a much greater aspect of like freedom in the holiest of ways, right?
I got a thing on that. And this is what I've been processing, because this is really new to me in the last 5 months, not probably 4, is when I would sit or just stand in the, you know, just like soak, I would go to God with my problems. And I realized when I'm up front and I'm just like, all right, I'm in the present, when I can actually focus, I'm like, during my week, I'm not spending enough time with the Lord. And so I come to church and I'm taking my problems for worship time. And like, Lord, like, life is, you know, I'm like, what do I do? And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, I'm one of these guys that like, I say I spend time with the Lord, and then I'm like, but I gotta unload all this stuff. And I'm like, well, now's the time, because now I'm sitting with you. And I'm like, you know what? Blast. I didn't spend enough time with you during the week. And now I got to unload, because I want to connect with you. And He's such a good father. He's going to connect with me. But he hit my heart, Jordan. Like, he's like, I miss you. He's like, you're coming to me at worship now. And he's like, and I want your heart. And he's like, I want to hear all this stuff. But he's like, he's just hitting me like, dude, like, you can do this anytime. Like, now's the time. Like, you got your family here. Let's like pour your heart out here, and like, let's spend time during the week. And I was like, oh my gosh, I missed the boat on that. And I'm so glad I see it now, and I'm still working on it, because there'll be some times where I'm like, oh, I'm falling back into my old habit of like, I didn't process this stuff through the week. So I'm coming into
Yeah.
church and I'm spending worship time complaining.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's so good. Yeah, that's another thing wow, yeah. I'm really glad you understand that and you get that. And I think, again, because of how the church has been made, church on Sunday, you go, you live your week, and you go and you encounter the Lord on Sunday. And again, we have it all wrong. I believe corporate worship too, just like how David danced before the ark. It was celebratory, it was freedom, it was wild, it was gratefulness. He was great. He was coming with celebration. And I just believe that corporate worship, I feel like biblically, was intended to like we are to come together. Okay, you do church is like your family. Like you find your tribe, you find your immediate like brothers and sisters in Christ, and you do life with them. And that's where you do church. That's where you talk about your problems. You have your intimate one-on-ones with the Lord and your family. That's your majority. And then when the Lord says to gather, it shouldn't be our time to like I mean, God can heal and do everything in those moments, but it shouldn't be like feel like our intimate place. And I feel like a lot of times worship and Sunday church is like a intimate place of like, oh, like because things you didn't deal with on like before.
Yeah.
And I just believe, and this is why I'm like I believe the Lord has shown me that corporate worship has always was intended to celebrate and declare and and celebrate what he has done and declare what he's going to do. Corporately, you come together and you celebrate all he's done.
Yeah.
It's a celebration of who he is, with all tongues and all tribes coming together and celebrating who he is. So I don't know if there should even be more praise, like high praise in corporate gatherings, but you know, it seemed like even when David was dancing for the ark, he was praising the Lord. He was praising him. He was heart of worship, but he was praising him for all his goodness and bringing the ark back to Jerusalem. Like, you know, so I just feel like, again, yeah, like I think that I'm not saying God doesn't show up. He doesn't waste moments, but I'm like, do we have it wrong a little bit?
Yeah, I think, like you said, he doesn't waste moments, and he obviously shows up. But I believe there's more, right? There's more, and that goes back to what I was saying about praying. Like, yeah, like if I sit here, but it's like if there's something to pray about, it's like let me go gather like 8 people and let's go pray. There's power in that, right? So if we're gonna worship, like if we all do that, just imagine, just like picture this out. The next time we're at worship, 100 out of 100 people, if there's exactly 100 there, are pouring their hearts out compared to 5 people. Something's going to be different. You're going to feel it. God, like the Holy Spirit, it's going to be different. And that you can't force that though. That can't be forced. And that's why it's different, because when it's authentic and real, the Holy Spirit it just shows up in a way you can't explain. And when those moments happen, I mean, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's important for someone like you, when you are so bold and brave and freedom, you're the spark. You got me, and I know you got other people. They see what you're going out and doing, and I'm like, I want some of that. And this kind of goes into a little bit of this. Every day, Jordan, I have not, or every day I've thought of this since that day for at least 30 minutes to an hour a day about the keys. And it's blowing my mind the more I think about this, and the more of what we can give to each other, and like that freedom. And so like that spark that you did and anyone else does in different areas, you don't even ever see it play out most time, because you're not with those people during the day. You don't know the conversations that they're having with the Lord. And it's really cool because it's just this huge ripple effect. And this is why it's so important to be who God created us to be, because that is when we actually make the most impact on other people in our family, in our tribe. And if we're not living who God created us to be, we're actually, I believe, like being a disservice to who he put us around. Like, and it's not that you're not struggling with stuff ever, or like you're having a doubt. But I'm being Jaron and you're being Jordan, and we're not comparing each other. And I'm not comparing, like I mentioned earlier, I almost kind of did. I'm like, well, I'm trying to figure out how to do the dance thing, right? But if that's like, when I'm free completely, because I know I'm not yet, like it won't look like what you're doing. And that's good. It's not just okay, it's good. And it's just so freeing, because what that thing you said, like everyone has something that can help somebody. And for you, helped me like literally unlock this. And it's like blowing my mind, because it's not just in worship. I'm being free in other areas. And I just love it. But the worship part is huge, because that's like I said earlier, like you said, like, oh, I'm glad you see that part of like the whole like coming to church and like spending time with the Lord. And like, man, I came to worship and I was complaining. And I didn't see that for 34 years, you know, my whole life, I never saw that, never thought of it. And then all of a sudden, as I'm diving into this more, I'm like, I don't even think I understood what the word, like what worship was, what it meant. Like, I think I was like, I don't even know. And so and I feel like I'm just this little tiny kid and trying to like, whoa, and still just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So it's cool because when you're just saying, so I have a spiritual symbol, but I just think it's so great for the rest of the body. It's a disco ball. I want a tattoo of it.
Nice.
Trying to convince David. But yeah. The disco ball is symbolic of just who we are in Christ. And like every mirror is us, and every single one of us is going to reflect a different version of his splendor, his brightness. And every part of the disco ball is going to, it literally like mirrors an entire room, every part of it. And I live by like that symbol. I just see myself as a disco ball because my desire is to express all of who he is, or desire the body of Christ to express of all of who he is in all of his splendor. And so yeah, like if we can break that mindset, that mindset of comparing, and just reflect him, how he made you, and be a portion of that reflection, be one of those mirrors, and reflect that part of the room, reflect that part of him. Which mirror are you, and how are you supposed to reflect him? People should ask God, how am I supposed to reflect you? And it is going to look different than my mirror, what I reflect off my mirror. But they're both equally stunning. And I think people, it's part of like grasping like who you are in him, and what you are to express of him. Like it's just he's just not a he's just not a stagnant, he's a reflective Lord. Like he's literally like, I don't know, it's just, that's the best analogy I can give. But I just desire to see people grasp that. And I know if we're all looking the same, then there's no way we're reflecting him. But being sensitive to the spirit, like I desire sometimes, I mean, whether there's different, like just in different art forms, right? Just different ways of expression. That's all. But like, yeah, I desire an army. I'm praying in an army of dancers right now. And when I dance, there's different forms of my dancing. There's intercessory dance. I dance in the form of intercession. It's a prayer language for me, but it's a love language also. It's an intimate place for me. So it means a lot for me, but it means like, it's literally a way I talk to God, is through movement. And I even do deliverance. That's how I do deliverance on people, is a lot, is mostly in movement. So what I carry in that, but I do believe there's power, and I believe that everybody can do this. I believe there is power in agreement and movement, where we're all doing the same thing too. But it's just being sensitive, what is pleasing to you right now, and what is necessary right now, Lord. So being sensitive to that, but like, as long as there's something expressive, I don't think it really, even if all looks the same, maybe, but you know what I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe I'm just going off now, but yeah, it's just being the church of the body of Christ needs to be a disco ball.
I like that. Like everybody mirrors, and if you're all the same, you're missing out. And that's what the body is. We all bring different things. But what you said on this comparison thing, there's the quote, and I've really thought about this actually probably like the last 4 or 5 years of this quote. Comparison is the thief of joy. And so when you compare yourself to anyone else, You're stealing and robbing the joy that God created you as a unique individual. And when you do that, you really can't be who you are. You can't be the best that God created you because you're trying to get something that was someone else's gift.
Right.
And that comparison, and we do this so much, and it's so sad because we'll look at somebody, whether it's dancing or singing or businesses or money, and we go, wow, they have that, or and it's the way that we say it. So you'll hear it like, or I can't dance like Jordan, so I probably shouldn't come up, or I can't build businesses like Jaron, so why start? Or like, I've heard these things, and I'm sure you have, and you hear it, and it's like, no. If anything, like, I want to be an encouragement. Don't compare, and we get into this mindset that if we can't do it as good as the person that is like their complete gifting, that we should never do it. And it's like, the Lord loves, I know he loves when you just put your heart out there and you look almost like a fool, like almost you go look like a fool. Like, I think there's something joyous about that. And cause you're being free, you're not caring, but that comparison, it just robs you of joy. And if you don't have joy in your life, it's just not a fun life. And this is in every aspect. People compare. We all do it. But when you can get rid of that comparison and you start living life. And last night I had Justin on and we did the podcast, and we were talking about people just like do to find their identity instead of being. And he uses this analogy of like, you're in the pillar of God's palace. You don't need to do anything. You just be right there. And I was like, that was the best analogy I've ever heard from like just being.
Yeah.
And you don't need to compare. You're right in there. And it's like, God put you in that pillar, in that brick to hold up this building. And if you take that piece out, you weaken it. And that's the part where people lose. When you're comparing, you're undermining not undermining, I don't know what the word is, but you're not believing who God created you to be, because he created you for a specific place and a purpose. And when you think from a world standpoint of money or fame or like, whatever people like really think is really good, is kingdom living is the opposite. And so when you're in that comparison spirit, the saddest part is you're actually just, you're not even coming from truth. You're coming from a place of lies. And it's just so sad. And that's something I've really thought about a lot, because it's so hard not to compare. It really is. And I've done a lot of renewing of my mind with people. It's like, no, like God created me to be me, and I'm going to be me. And I've had to work at it a lot. So I think there is a good place to end. This was great, Jordan. I just love going down worship, and I'm so excited what the Lord has for our community and our tribe that we're a part of, and dance parties here. Yes. And worship parties here with dancing and just being freedom slinging. So thanks for coming on, and I'm so excited to do life with you and your husband and your family.
Yes.
Good. All right.